What is the wisest saying you've ever heard? It is easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you. Fool me 3 times, forget the peace signs, load the chopper, let it rain on you. We judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their behavior. There was something I saw as a little kid that really shaped the way I saw the world after. I was visiting some relatives, and I was in the back of the car while we were driving home. Someone came close to hitting them and they were ticked. Swearing, complaining about what a jerk that guy was, all that. The usual. A little later, the driver made a mistake and nearly hit another car. It was an honest mistake, and they were honestly sorry. They were apologizing over and over even though the other person couldn't hear, making peace signs at the window in the hopes the other person might see. And it made me wonder, was that other guy sorry too? Had he made a stupid but honest mistake, just like they had? I think of that a lot now. Is this other person a jerk, or could it be an honest mistake? Could they be having an awful day? Could they be trying their best? The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. This reminds me of advice my dad's given me: people have a tendency to be crabs. I don't know how much you've been around a bucket of crabs, but usually no crabs escape the bucket. They hold each other down, almost automatically, usually leading to all of them perishing. People automatically asking you, why bother, is evidence of them trying to pull you down to their level. A man was walking along a beach the morning after a storm. The storm had churned up the waves to the extent that countless starfish had washed ashore, and were now baking in the hot sun. As he walked, he saw a boy running along the beach, stopping, picking up starfish and throwing them back on the ocean, and then running along to the next one. For every one the boy tossed in, 10 more washed ashore on a wave. So the man said to the boy, "What are you doing? There are dozens, hundreds, of these starfish on the beach. You can't possibly hope to save them. What does this matter?" And the boy ran to a starfish, picked it up, threw it into the sea, pointed and said, "It mattered to that one." Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. I don't know. Sometimes people you don't like will point things out that are true, if only to hurt you. It takes a fool to point out the emperor has no clothes. Learning from mistakes is one of the best ways to learn, no reason they have to be your own. Experience is the capacity to recognize a mistake when you are about to make it again. My boss. I like my boss. Intelligence is the capacity to recognize a mistake you've never made before. Don't practice until you get it right, practice until you can't get it wrong. Similar to something from I think Bruce Lee. Roughly, don't be afraid of the guy that practices 10,000 kicks, be afraid of the guy that practiced one kick 10,000 times. Never do illegal shit while doing illegal shit. Only break one law at a time. My father always told me this, and to only break the law by yourself, that way you only have to worry about one story. If you raise your kids you can spoil your grandchildren, but if you spoil your kids you will have to raise your grandchildren. My favorite in this vein, is simply the most important decision you make in life is who you choose to have your children with. That relationship can have a bigger impact on your happiness, finances, and well-being for the rest of your life than anything else you choose. Drunk divorced middle-aged attorney to a group of 20-somethings. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That's not weakness, that's life. Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Another one that sticks with me from Picard. There can be no justice so long as laws are absolute. Took me a while before this started meaning something to me. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. It's a Martin Luther King quote. He said basically as long as people stay quiet and maintain the status quo about huge issues that affect us, we'll forever be oppressed. I'm just not really into politics has a much larger negative impact than Make America Great Again. Our ignorance and apathy is the main cause of failure of our democracy and society. Just because you can, doesn't mean you shouldn't. Just because it's comfortable, doesn't mean it's good. To worry is to pay a debt of misery that may never come due. Accept inevitable outcomes, and do your best to change changeable outcomes to your liking. Worrying does nothing. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but doesn't get you anywhere. Real wealth is never having to spend time with assholes. John Waters. As they surround themselves with fewer and fewer assholes, the criteria for what an asshole is becomes more and more strict. One day anybody who disagrees on anything is an asshole. And then we say people become assholes when they became rich because they surrounded themselves with yes men. Make time for planning. Wars are won in the general's tent. Give me 3 hours to fell a tree and I will spend 2 sharpening the axe. And along those lines of planning/training extensively, one of my favorite quotes, "No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy." I believe it is widely attributed to Helmut von Moltke the Elder. And I don't think it conflicts with yours. I always like to have a plan B, C, D, and a fallback position. We have 2 lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one. Confucius. Never play chess with a pigeon. It knocks all the pieces over, shits all over the board and walks around like it's won. Good thing to remember before you start an argument with someone. If you are arguing with a fool, make sure he isn't doing the same thing. Follow your heart but take your brain with you. I think that one goes by all means have an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. I think it refers to be open to new knowledge and experiences, but be rational about it. I saw an example of this in India. The tour group I was in had this one girl who went to the same tea shop as I did. She was so excited about experiencing India that when some random dude offered her some hash to smoke if she came back to his apartment, she just said yes and went with him. Didn't tell anyone she was going with him or say no. It's a miracle she wasn't raped. But considering how she was eager to just get out and end the whole tour group holiday and go home after that, I'd say something happened, like they tried to rape her. This, my friends, is an example of a mind so open her brain fell out. If you never heal from what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. Also, 2 sick people does not make one healthy relationship. I've fallen into the "we're both so damaged, we're perfect for each other" trap more often than I'd like to admit. Hate is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent to throw it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Buddha. When you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. God on Futurama. Everything's working, what do we pay these IT staff for? Nothing's working, what do we pay these IT staff for? Business management. As someone who has worked in sanitation, there are so many jobs being done behind the scenes that nobody thinks about but are absolutely necessary. Like, imagine the guy who runs your town's sewerage treatment plant starts messing up and the shit water starts mixing in with the drinking water. Everything falls apart. Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for a late pizza. I always interpret it along the lines of be forgiving of people, but don't let them walk all over you. If it smells everywhere you go, maybe it's you. My brother is a real estate guy. He takes all these business-related leadership development trainings, and one thing they taught him was if everyone has a problem with Bob, Bob is the problem. This made me think of that. If you buy cheap, you buy twice. My mum said this to me years ago in relation to clothing, shoes, goods for your home, etc., not including food. She wasn't saying that everything you buy needs to be expensive, but rather that if you buy something cheap, of poor quality, you'll likely have to buy a similar item again due to it wearing out/breaking. Really stuck with me as I transitioned to adulthood. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which was sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. This was the Captain Samuel Vimes Boots theory of socio-economic unfairness. Terry Pratchett. My top 5 favorite quotes. We suffer more from imagination than from reality. Seneca. It's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just try to escape your own. Marcus Aurelius. If you have a problem that can be fixed, there is no use in worrying. If you have a problem that cannot be fixed, there is no use in worrying. Buddhist proverb. The world is a comedy to those that think, a tragedy to those that feel. Horace Walpole. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius.